Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Dr. Naomi Roberson, and my guest today is no stranger to us. You've seen him on the hit show Empire and on Chicago Med. Thank you for coming today, Mr. Boyd, Sylvester Boyd.
Glad to be here.
Okay. You know, I've been talking with you about your book, and that's what we want to talk about today, your book as well. It's called The Road from Money. And people say, that doesn't make sense, but it does. Tell us about it.
Okay, the book is basically a time about my aunt who was born in Money, Mississippi. That's where the title comes from, Money. And Money, Mississippi, around the turn of the century, she was born in 1917. But the book encompasses a time from 1917 to 1937.
Okay.
And it's a time when cars were new and airplanes had just taken to the sky. And it was a time when what we think of as a very severe time for African Americans in the South. My aunt was a sharecropper, and if you know what that means, that's basically you pick cotton and you are part of almost like a plantation, but only since slavery was outlawed, it couldn't be a plantation. So basically you pick the cotton, and all year long they let you pay your bill at the end of the time that you picked the cotton. You'd end up owing at the end of the year.
Oh, wow.
Than, you know,
after all that work, yeah.
After all the work at the end of the year.
That's amazing. But you know what? We accepted that because we didn't know better. That's just the way it was, you know. But thank God for changes.
A whole lot of changes.
Okay, a lot of changes. And, you know, we're supposed to own the land anyway. You know, we worked it, you know. But it's a good story. I want you to just take a look at this, and I want you to give us a call. You'll see a number at the end of the program. You can get this book, and again, it's called The Road from Money, and it's a good story, interesting story, and I'm sure you will enjoy as well as I did. Now, I want to talk to you about just the African American male, period. And my first question to you is, what is it like living in America as an African American male?
Well, living in America as an African American male, you always feel
work,
after all the work at the end of the year.
That's amazing. But you know what? We accepted that because we didn't know better. That's just the way it was, you know. But thank God for changes.
A whole lot of changes.
Okay, a lot of changes. And, you know, we're supposed to own the land anyway. You know, we worked it, you know. But it's a good story. I want you to just take a look at this, and I want you to give us a call. You'll see a number at the end of the program. You can get this book, and again, it's called The Road from Money, and it's a good story, interesting story, and I'm sure you will enjoy as well as I did. Now, I want to talk to you about just the African American male, period. And my first question to you is, what is it like living in America as an African American male?
Well, living in America as an African American male, you always feel that you're not treated equally, that there's always something that you do or you target it somewhat from the establishment. You don't feel like justice will ever be rendered in your favor if there's an incident or something that occurs. If a police officer stops you for any reason, you feel like you won't ever get the benefit of the doubt. That type of thing. All the time there's always sort of a constant tension in the air.
Do you think basically that African American men just fear the police?
African American men do fear the police, but also the police fear African American men.
And why is that?
And that's because everything that's portrayed on TV is negative when it comes to African American men. They're never portrayed in a favorable light. They are always the villain, the dope dealer, the dope pushers, the hustlers, never the people who contribute to the society, always portrayed as people that take away from the society.
We know that is not true. That's a stereotype. There are a lot of prominent, and I want to say it to you that's watching this program, there are a lot of prominent African American drugs for them. If they didn't turn in all the money, they take them in the alley. I saw this at 11 years old, and they beat the crap out of them. And they made an example, sort of like slavery. You know, if you try to run away, you don't do what you're supposed to do, I tell you to do. You know, I'm going to make you an example before all the other slaves, and I'm going to beat you half to death. And that's what we grew up with, and a lot of black men are fearful of that. Then at one time, things started to change because during the 60s, they had a lot of riots going on down south, and even in Chicago. I remember when the current mayor, not the current mayor, the mayor then had an order, shoot to kill. You know,
I believe that was Mayor Daley.
I don't know if you were in Chicago
yes,
then.
I was. Yes, I was.
Had a curfew. How you going to
correct.
give a grown man?
Correct.
It was awful. It really was. And we were very fearful. I lived in an integrated neighborhood. I went to an integrated high school, and I couldn't even, they had a boycott. You know, there were certain days we couldn't even go to school, but I went because I said, this is all I have is my education.
Correct.
And I was an honor student too, and I said, you know what, if they kill me, they kill me. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about a book that I've written called The Demons That Divide America, and I wrote the story in the book about how I went to school that day, 13 years old. That was my first year of high school, and I wasn't afraid because I felt right. That this is my school, I'm going for my education, they can't take this away from me. This is all I have. And they looked at me like I was crazy. They had the National Guards at the corner in Chicago, 79th and Halsted. You know, when you got past Halsted, you were running into another group of people, race of people.
Correct.
You had to stay on one side. I don't know, this segregation thing is just totally out of hand. But here's another thing I want to talk about. We talk about the criminals have to do, they become criminals because they have to do something to make a living. Got to have some money, right?
Correct.
They can't find a job. But
Correct.
You know what else we forgot about people? We forgot about mental illness. Everybody out there committing those crimes are not necessarily saying they need some help. They need some help. I worked in mental health for years, okay? And I've seen situations where some people just doing crazy things. That, you know, they may, I want to say, trip out on some drugs or something. And they're doing things that's totally out of character because of their mental health. They don't have the insurance, okay? They really don't know where to go to get help. And we have a tendency as African Americans, and probably other races as well, self-medicate. And that's where the drugs and the alcohol, substance abuse come in at. They're trying to just get through the day. And I don't make excuses for it. I just say they need some help. And that's what I was watching on a program where it said they're training policemen more now to deal with suspects who have mental health problems. Now, we just seen a situation where the guy was telling the police, let me just get my dog, let me get my dog, you know. And they didn't listen to that, and it was about, I think, I'm not sure, I believe it was 10 policemen. Anyway, he died. Why has everybody got to be on the ground? You know?
Right.
I don't understand that. I'm just saying, I don't understand
Right.
that, you know. But what do you think about this with the mental health condition?
You know, here, there's a couple things. As you alluded to earlier, you know, talking about how policemen was done early in our society. When I was a kid, basically the policemen, like you said, officer friendly. We actually had what they call beat cops, and you knew Officer Vic or Officer Joe, and he knew your parents, and if you did something wrong, it wouldn't get to the point where he had to take his gun out. He would tell your parent that, you know, hey, Junior did something wrong, and your parents would then take it right there. So it mitigated a lot of the problems that occurred now in our society. Also, I think we need to diversify the police department more. We need to have white officers and black officers in mixed cars, not so many white officers running around, driving around, and they kind of feed off each other. If there's a racist cop in the batch, the next guy doesn't say anything, and so it just goes. When you put a black officer in that same car, that kind of breaks that context up. The black community in Chicago sees the white police officer as one of an occupying army in his community. He doesn't see him as a person that lives in the community, really doesn't understand the community, and only has a negative image of the community and the people that he's supposed to be for serving and protecting. I think we can do a lot of things to change that if we look at what really is happening and not the fictional stereotype images that we seem to gravitate toward. In Chicago, I think we make it very difficult for the police and the community to cooperate with one another. The police don't give respect, so they don't get respect. Respect is something that is earned. It is not something that just is natural. If you do something disrespectful to me, I'm going to disrespect you. I'm not going to cooperate with the police if I think the police are not respectful to my community. So it is a two-way street, and we want to say, well, why didn't somebody turn somebody in, or why didn't somebody cooperate with the police? Because they may have seen that same person have seen a situation where the police were totally out of line, but they just walk away and there's nothing done. And the next time something happens, I'm not going to cooperate with that officer.
We know for a fact that we need police, but I just have a problem when some police become police for the authority and for the power. And I think they need better training too. I think the training is outdated, especially when I heard of the situation where a woman called the police because the neighbor choked her son. Because he thrown something on the ground, he had littered, and the little boy, or whoever it was, choked him. And it was pretty bad. So she called the police came. She said, "I'm calling you because my son threw some paper on the ground and the boy choked him." His response was, "Why don't you teach him not to litter?" And I thought that was like, he thought he was above the law. That was the wrong, and she went, you know, now if you give a hostile create a hostile situation, that's what you're gonna get. And he created a hostile situation because she thought she did the right thing, which she did, to call the police to try to mediate what was going on. And next thing you know, she said, well, you know, she just kind of like, why are you saying this? You know, this boy choked my son. And her daughter saw that she was getting heated up and just said, "Come on, Mom, let's go." And that's when the police grabbed her and threw her on the ground and arrested her. They dropped the charges, but why did she have to even go through all of that?
Right.
That's somebody that need to know how to diffuse a situation. That's what I remember growing up. We had policemen who could diffuse a situation. Little kids would get into little, you know, altercation, and we were playing together when it was over because he diffused the situation, you know. And that's what I want to say right now, that we need the police. We need good cops. We really do. We need some back in the day cops.
Of course we do.
You know, we got to have them. But I just think that it's time to make their background public, okay? If you got cops that's got 10 and 12 different complaints, we need to know that. We're the taxpayers. We pay their salary. We need to know who these guys are. And you need to do something with them. Retrain them. You know, everybody needs their job and their pension, but retrain them. Make them one of the best, one of the finest. But we're almost out of time. We have a little time left. But I want to ask you, what advice would you give to African-American men, especially the younger ones, about dealing with the police? What would they need to do when the police pull them over or any other situation?
Well, you know, number one, don't make any sudden moves because you don't want to give him a chance to say that he thought you had a gun or he thought you were being aggressive toward him. Usually when I'm approached by the police, I always use the term officer, which is a term that is respectful, not, you know, don't be belligerent, don't contest what he's saying. Try to be as cooperative as possible, and try, number one, not to get in situations where you may be involved with a police officer. If that is probably the best thing to do, is not to get into situations where you're selling drugs or where you're on the street doing things that you shouldn't be doing, which then brings the officer into the situation, and there could be a confrontation. Don't be confrontational. Basically, that's the word I want to use. Don't be confrontational. As you were just talking about training, I think training bothers me some because they say the police are not trained. But basically, when I go into other neighborhoods or white neighborhoods, I don't see them doing the same things in those neighborhoods as they do in the African and Hispanic community. They don't need training. They need to be respectful. The training is there. I haven't seen too many black officers shoot a young white kid in the back. I just haven't seen that. And they do know how to act. They know how to act when they're in their community. But they seem to think there's carte blanche in the African American community. This is just factual. It's something we need to face, and we need to get rid of the bad cops so the good cops can do their job and do it effectively.
Well, I have personally seen and heard of situations where white suspects were taken down without an altercation and without being shot. Okay, I think back to the young guy who shot the 9 people in the church. One of the first things they did was put a bulletproof vest on him. So that tells you right there, they were saving him from the people and the public. And I think that was fine, but this man was wrong. He was just wrong. But they didn't shoot him. I know for a fact, I don't care, don't call me, don't write me, because this is what I believe. Had he been an African-American man, he would have been riddled with bullets. I know that for a fact. It didn't matter if he shot 9 black people or 9 white. It didn't matter. He was black. And I get tired of hearing that, because I know for a fact that our ancestors, slavery, made America earn billions of dollars. And it's not their money that we ask for. When you find black people who can't get a job and need some welfare, that's not the white man's money. That was our money that we had stored up anyway. We earned a wealth of money and made billions of corporations and universities rich. Check your history. It's true, okay? But we need to understand, number one, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We can't be divided. We can't let their negativity destroy us as a people. We can't be so that we can't share the things that we have with others if it's going to help them have the knowledge to do good as well. It's just a sin to me that a person will get rich at the expense of making other people poor. And that's what happened with African Americans when slavery was going on. They were making money. Why do we have to eat the leftover garbage that they threw out? You see what I'm saying? We earned whatever we had, and like you said earlier about your book, how we just had very little, and how they just treated us, just the way your aunt was treated in terms of poverty. Sometimes you don't even know when you're poor if you grow up a certain way.
Correct.
And I'm the 7th of 11 children. I didn't know I was poor. And I'm not going to say I was poor. My parents were poor, okay? I'm not poor. But I just thank God for knowledge, and I thank God. I want to reiterate and say that, there are a lot of good cops. They really are. They need to be commended. They really do. But we have to understand that some police have just failed through the cracks, I have policemen in my family, and they're not like that, And I just want us to understand that it's got to stop. It's got to stop somewhere. It's got to stop. That's it. You can hire another 1,000, but if you don't implement programs and get resource centers and places where kids can go for after school, and you're cutting these programs so there's no money, But if we can get, where we need to be in terms of let's do right by everyone in terms of the budgets. And that's where it starts. We still don't have a budget for the state of Illinois. They're working on it. And why do you have to threaten somebody to make them do right? Okay, I heard where they said if you all don't come up with a budget, the employees won't get paid. That'll make you work, won't it?
Yeah,
that'll make you work.
Impetus.
But so growing up for you, and I want to end here, growing up for you was, I guess, pretty much okay, but you still knew some dilemmas was there.
Well, growing up for me was, I want to say, maybe not the usual situation. I was basically given opportunities that many African Americans weren't given. I have been into a situation where I was in all black schools. I have been in mixed schools, and I've been in all white schools. That's a very unique circumstance, because most people, black or white, never get that circumstance at a young age. Generally, if you're white, you stay in a white community, black stays in the black. And I was able to see and compare a lot of things that other people weren't able to see and compare. And I think it all is a matter of one big word, and this is the word that I always carry with me, respect. Because respect given will change the whole dynamic. Respect not given changes it to a negative. The more respect you give, the more life becomes respectful to you.
That's right.
And if you don't give respect, don't expect to get respect. And I think that is one of the biggest words that I always carry with me. I try to respect others, and I want others to respect me, whether they wear a blue shirt or a brown shirt, or whether they wear a suit or whether they wear a dress. It doesn't make any difference. Respect is a universal word. And I think the Chicago Police Department has to learn that you must respect the people you are supposed to be serving and protecting.
Right. And you know what I just got out of everything that you just said? You always knew that you were black. And that's a good thing. There are a lot of African Americans, they don't know that they're black. We can name some. They forgot it. You know, they got the money and went on with the families and married to, you know, the skinny white blind women. And all that's okay if you want to do that. That's your choice. My point is this. Always know who you are. Always know who you are. I don't care if you got a parent that's Caucasian and one is African American. Know who you are. You listen, I thank God for you being here today. You've been a wonderful guest. We'll have to have you back sometime. And I want to tell you again about the book here. It's called The Road from Money. It's a journey to find why.
It's an award-winning book.
Award-winning book. Okay, thank God. All right. Award-winning book. And I want you to get this book. It'll be a number at the end of the program. We'll tell you how you can get it. And we'll see you next time. God bless.